Hey everybody, welcome to Building Jam episode 12. In this episode, we talk about a go or a no-go decision about the podcast. We talk about what Heinz Ketchup has to do with AI, and we also talk about Jam's new growth team. So let's get into it.
Well, if you remember, this all started, we were taking a walking tour of Bogota, and on the walking tour, we had this idea, and we said, let's try it for 12 weeks, and then we can decide at the end of the 12 weeks if we want to continue or not. And so we're going to decide after this episode what to do. And I'm curious to get your thoughts.
What do you think? It's a hard question. I feel like I want to keep doing it, but I don't know if I want to keep doing it for the right reasons, right? Like I want to do it for the
right reasons. What? Yeah. Can you list the wrong reasons that you want to keep going?
So, like, selfishly, this podcast, I learn a lot from it every week. Like, having these sort of conversations and talking to you guys, it's sort of like getting like unfiltered access to startup founders. It's like a huge thing for a person, and you don't usually get that all the time, right? So like, I don't want to stop getting unfiltered access to Jam founders for 1 hour every week. I learn a ton. So that would be my reason. Like, I feel like I've gotten better at my job since starting the podcast.
Sounds like Ivana is not going to get the rose this week because she's not here for the right reasons. I was just waiting to say that.
One thing that's been really special is, okay, so our viewer count is super small, right? Like, I mean, early podcasts, like it's a few hundred listens every episode. But then we talk to those people who are in the few hundred listens, and it's like, okay, it's so cool. Like, they're building their company, their product, their startup. We're building our product, company, startup. And like, we're meeting in the middle in these discussions. And like, that feels special. That feels like a really special thing. So I think that's very top of mind to me.
Also, comments are so positive, right, Ian?
So nice.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I think like, one thing that we didn't let get in our way here was actually just shipping it and going for it. And like looking at like 12 weeks is a long time. And like, we didn't miss a single Friday, 8 a.m. So like, I'm proud of us, doing that and like being here. I also think like, just in terms of the format, like we can do like more to evolve it and more to try different things. And I still think we're sort of finding our voice with what this is, like the mix between here's like one topic and we're going to deep dive and like have all of our insights about this one thing versus, hey, we're just going to share what's top of mind and have this be really just like off the cuff. What's real for us this week. Like, I think both can work and both are valuable for different ways, but for us to like figure out which of those lanes is like we want to lean into more. And for me, like, I think there's a level of having a cool podcast animation. I'm like, hey, like that's something I want to do. Like there are all these, ways that we're distributing it that we've already learned how we can improve. Like, I don't know, there are all these things to try that makes me, want to keep keep exploring this.
Yeah. And I think
it takes a lot of work. Can I just give a shout out quickly? It takes a lot of work to like edit and like produce this thing. Like,
yeah,
Ian,
go Ian.
Thanks for doing that. Ivana, thanks for getting all the socials ready to like make this thing happen. Like, I think I have the easiest job here. Like, I just like show up, but I do appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, I think you've been responsible for many of our funny moments and cultural references in the 12 weeks of Building Jam. So that's
why they pay me the big bucks.
Such a dad joke. I feel like my dad has said the big bucks like so many times.
I really like this way of working, which is to say, like, we're going to do a thing and we're going to do it for this amount of time and we're not going to evaluate it until the end. And then we'll evaluate. I really like that. I almost wonder if basically the decision we should make is like, instead of, this is a thing that we do, it's like, let's renew this for 8 more weeks, or like, I don't know, like, I wonder if
the next season 2.
Yeah, exactly. Season 2.
Yeah. It's like we're getting renewed for a new season, but our first contract was 12 episodes and our next contract got cut. It's like 8.
And
iteration cycle.
Just don't just stick to it.
Yeah, I think there might be like some changes, some tweaks. Like I really don't want to stop, right? Like I love thinking about that, like maybe renewing it for another season. Maybe the answer is maybe it's not every week, maybe it's bi-weekly, or maybe I don't know. But I do feel like we're starting to hit a groove, and I don't think that the goal of this podcast was ever for it to be like a viral acquisition channel for Jam. I think it was more for our community that already knows Jam and wants to hear more about it, and I think that it's accomplishing that.
One final thing before you change the topic. One thing that's been interesting to me is many people have seen clips of the podcast while not seeing full episodes of it. And I find this to be an interesting thing too, just in terms of our like actually that is what people are seeing are these little clips. And so it makes me think about like maybe it's a lesson for me of like, oh, how important distribution is, and like how important how can we have those be actually more valuable is something that comes to mind for me is like, it's not only about how is like our format and the long form, but it's actually about how can these like little clips, like how can actually these be better too. So
yeah, and that's so smart. Yeah. I have a question for you all. Do you watch video clips on Twitter? Like if you're scrolling in your feed and someone's published like a video, do you stop and watch it or do you just move on?
Depends on what it is.
We watch it.
Like if it hooks me, I'll watch it.
I'm very well trained by TikTok these days, where if there is video content that has an interesting enough of a thumbnail, I will click on it. I'll give it a chance. Hey, can I ask you something interesting? Like something that I've been thinking about. And okay, before I say that, have you all watched the show Food That Made America? Have you all watched that show? Okay, yeah, no one has. The only reason I watched it is because I was in a hotel room and there was nothing interesting on TV. And me and my wife, we started watching this. It's a History Channel TV show that tells you everything, right? But basically, it's like these documentaries about companies and founders, but they act it out. So they have the interviews, but it's like, if they're making a documentary about Rockefeller, someone pretends to be Rockefeller and they're doing the acting, terrible acting, but really good stories, okay? So I was watching this one about Henry Heinz, like who made the Heinz Ketchup. And like his story is interesting, but the thing that's really interesting is back then electricity was not really popular or common. But the Chicago World Fair happens, and then he goes there, and there's this company, Westinghouse, you haven't heard the name. They do this like light up everything with electricity. So he gets the idea that, okay, I can beat my competition by really using electricity and speeding things up so we can work through the night. So he gets these factory buildings, installs electricity, and it makes the factory more efficient. And I was thinking, like we have this like very, not by we, I mean the general we, of being very dismissive about Gen AI, where everyone's like, oh, it's like commoditized, like it's gonna, like there's no like, you cannot build like apps on it or like services on top of it. It's not gonna make money because again, it's commoditized. But the real maker of the Gen AI, they're the ones who are gonna win, and I'm sure, of course, they'll win. But when I saw that episode, it reminded me of the parallel between electricity and Gen AI, and I think like no one's really talking about GE and General like Westinghouse anymore, right? They're the ones who got commoditized. That's what everyone is using on top. So all of the application companies, in this case, like Heinz Ketchup, they're the ones who are like a multi-billion, trillion-dollar company building these crazy business on top of electricity, just like a lot of other companies. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's a different way to like think about this. I don't have like a very concrete thought there, but I thought it was interesting because it helps you have a different perspective on what Gen AI is doing and how it can facilitate lots of companies like ours to offer better products and services to our customers. Like, how are y'all thinking about that? I'm curious.
What an amazing story.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's like, right, if we think about AI like electricity, right? It's just like a new technological advancement. You don't have to necessarily go and sell a version of ChatGPT. No, but now you get to use electricity, or in this case AI, to build your own company, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an AI offering, right? Although like most things now do have AI in some capacity, even though it might not be like the biggest thing, right? But your product now works better, your employees are more efficient. I totally see what you're saying there. I don't know like how I personally am thinking about it. Like I see a lot of people kind of like fear, like when Figma unveiled their new AI features, there was like a lot of hubbub on Twitter about like, oh no, like Figma is now against designers because they're now doing designer jobs with AI, and they're going to take, and then the same thing happened like when ChatGPT first came out, like the journalism and the writer community were all up in arms, like we're going to lose our jobs, right? And like, I don't understand why people are like this, like so scared of this. I don't see AI as like a job taker at all. If anything, I see AI as like a job creator, kind of like Dani, what you were saying, what Dani spoke about at SourceGraph. Like Dani was saying, she thinks that there's going to be like 100 times more engineers in the next 10 years thanks to AI.
Benedict Evans,
Totally.
He says it's really easy to imagine what jobs will be lost because you can see them. You actually don't have to imagine it. You can just see those jobs. It's really hard to imagine what jobs will be created because imagining something is hard. And so we look at what AI can do and streamline, and it's really easy to imagine, well, I won't need to do that. But it's really hard to see like, well, what will I get to do instead? But that's actually probably the way that the world unfolds.
Yeah.
That is such an exciting way to
tell
think
you,
about the future.
Totally. Just to sort of wrap on this, I think one thing that I feel very inspired by is if I think about what we get to do in a software company, like for work, it's just like we are so lucky. Like if I think about like my parents' generation a bit, but like definitely my grandparents' generation, what they did for work, it's just you work very, very hard, and you don't get to build these things from scratch in the same creative way, and you don't get to like be part of this like global effort and movement and community in the same way, and you don't get, there's less building, it's less creative, it's less generative. I don't know, I just feel like we're like the luckiest generation on the planet in terms of what we get to do for work. And when I see the AI tools and how much more they empower people to do that, and it's just, I feel very inspired.
Yeah.
Can I pivot us one last jam topic?
Yes, please.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So the experience of like starting a growth team at Jam has basically been like, we're learning to swim, and then our investors are like, please meet Michael Phelps, he will teach you the ropes. So we've been so lucky. We've got to have like these amazing conversations with these growth leaders at companies that we admire, and they've given us a ton of great advice about how to start a growth team. And some of it is very tactical, but some of it is like, here's what you want to make sure to do on day one to help the team succeed in the long run. And it's like basically create a framework that you can trust a team to run while you look away and know that they're like moving with the company in the right direction. And so I wrote a first draft of our growth team charter. Do you want to see it?
Yes.
Oh, the charter.
A charter.
We call it.
Charter. I'm jealous of growth.
We can call it the Michael Phelps charter.
Yes. Let me just rename that. So this is the charter of the growth team. It answers, what is its purpose? Why does it exist? How does it fit into the company? And what are its product principles? And I thought this, and I'm super excited about it. And a few things I wanted to highlight. So even though it's called the growth team, it really is about helping our users experience the core value of Jam. And if you think about product-led growth, the greatest thing about product-led growth, it's so incentive aligned. It's like you help your users succeed, and your users in turn help you grow. And if you break helping your users succeed, they no longer help you grow because they stop using the product. It's like, what does a growth team do? It's like all in favor of users. And if you think about how it fits into like the core team structure, it's like we make promises to our core users. We try to meet the promises by building, and then we help them experience it. And I'm excited about a team that's just thinking in this way about having our users succeed. And then the last thing is like, there's a lot of like short-term growth like efforts that you. So what are the principles that we're unwilling to break? And it's like, don't make engineers jump through hoops to fix a bug. Like, let's just never do that. Let's just agree on day one. And so I like build a long-term relationship with our users over short-term gain. Like always think about the long-term. And so I wanted to share this. I'm excited about this team existing, and I'm excited about our first team charter.
Me too. Now that I look at this, I take it back. Marketing does have one of these. But this is it's really, really cool to see. I'm kind of reminded of like a few months ago when I was like, somebody asked like, who owns this or that? And I was like, it doesn't matter. We're a startup. We all own everything. And that's how it still kind of feels like that a lot, right? But I love how we're sort of a little bit kind of evolving. We're getting bigger. And so now like, we need team charters and we need to know, what this team does as opposed to this other team. And I think it's exciting that we're getting there.
I think I'm trying to think about the concrete decisions that we'll be making in the product where these principles will make us sway us one way or another, or like a decision that, and like I feel like not making someone jump through hoops to fix a bug is like a clear one where we say this clearly introduces a hoop. It maybe has some other someone would only justify it if it had some other potential upside for the business, but it's great. Like that's like a very concrete one. And I guess I'm trying to think about if there would be common or other product advice or product guidance people would be following that are sort of against what you just showed. Like I don't know, to think about how this charter is differentiated for us and our and what we do versus what someone else could do. Like I'm curious.
Yeah, here's one. You could imagine a company that's like, we capture leads at all costs. And so we need an email address from everyone who interacts with the product, because that starts our sales process, and we chase them down, we get their phone number, and we call it like whatever. But like, we don't make engineers jump through hoops. And so we're never going to ask them for their email. We just let them fix bugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think like maybe some people would call this sort of growth team stuff. I think that's part of the confusion, right? Everybody calls these things differently, right? Like sometimes you hear, and it sort of depends on like I think it depends on whether your company was born as a PLG company, or whether you added PLG later. So if you were like born as a sales-led company, then like what you call these things changes. And so I think that's part of the confusion. Like I think some people maybe would call this growth team like sales assist or something else. And so no, you don't think so?
Man, so interesting. Like the things that you call it can also influence, like you were saying, like the culture and the principles, right? Because when you call something sales assist, sales is the primary goal. It's not about adoption. It is clearly about monetization. Fascinating.
Oh, that's interesting. Should we call this the adoption team?
I like it.
That's interesting.